So another day of Cleveland Browns training camp is officially in the books, and what a day it was. We got to see a lot from all of the quarterbacks. Shedeur Sanders had a solid day. He participated in a lot of drills and was a perfect 4 for 4 in one of them. We saw Kenny Pickett throw an interception, and I by no means am a hater at all. I wish him the best, but I do not want to see him under center at all throughout the upcoming season. So when he throws picks in training camp, it makes me happy, and I'm sure it probably makes a lot of you guys that are Browns fans also happy. And it was ugly. You don't want to be throwing interceptions when there's no pressure in this setting in training camp, because it was an unforced error. So not a good look for him. And honestly, every time that something like that happens, Shedeur kind of creeps up and slightly moves up in the pecking order. I know right now he's the number 4 guy listed on the depth chart, but I just don't understand what role Kenny Pickett has. I know the Browns brought him in at the time because they literally had no QBs on the roster, so going into the draft they had to do something. But then they found out that they were going to get Joe Flacco back once again, and then they drafted Dylan Gabriel, and then it was the 5th round and Shedeur Sanders was sitting there, and all of a sudden they had 4 quarterbacks, and really it's 5 because Deshaun Watson is still getting paid. It's a crazy situation. But now I don't understand why Kenny Pickett's on the roster, but I mean, it is what it is, and this is a 4-man battle. Hopefully all the quarterbacks are making each other better, but so far Shedeur has had a really good OTAs and a really good minicamp, and now he is starting off training camp strong, while some of the other QBs kind of have been struggling. But nonetheless, in this video, I just kind of want to show you what went down in day 2 of training camp, because there was a lot. We got to see some of the running backs. There was so much more than just the quarterbacks out there, obviously. I know it's still not that intense because there's no pads, but it's just great to see football activities happening. It's a great day to be a Browns fan because the season is going to be here before you know it. But before I do get into everything and break down the practice, I would really appreciate it if y'all did me a big favor. Please hit that like button and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds. Plus, you can always change your mind, and your support truly means the world. Alright, so there was no Jerome Ford on the field today, and with Quinshon Judkins still unsigned because of everything that happened in Florida with him, that unfortunate situation, the running back room looked a little thin, but that meant more opportunities for Dylan Sampson, Hassan Hall, and Nate Marshall, so not a bad thing at all. Pierre Strong as well, I can't leave his name out because he very well could be the RB2 or RB3, and he's a former Patriot. So all 4 of those guys saw quite a few touches, and to me, Pierre Strong might even be trying to take hold of that RB2 spot behind Ford once he returns. And with these early reps being non-contact and without pads, it is hard to fully evaluate, but you can still get a feel for who's getting the work and who's being prioritized by the coaching staff. As for the quarterbacks, the Browns aren't ruling out keeping all 4 on the roster: Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Joe Flacco. That of course is. It's early, but Shedeur continues to be the most intriguing guy. He's been in the spotlight since day 1, and the team really seems hesitant to give him the full green light just yet, and they don't want to rush it. They shouldn't, but when they do, it's clear that there's something there. One of his throws from yesterday, I know I'm talking about today, but one of his throws from yesterday was working off play action. It was easily one of the best of the entire day throughout all the quarterbacks. He dropped it right in where only his guy could get it and hit his receiver in stride with room to run, and that's been a trend with Shedeur, even when he's not lighting up the stat sheet per se. The ball placement and the timing have stood out, and his mechanics are super clean. Joe Flacco got the first reps today in the team period. His first play was a handoff to Pierre Strong. Then he came back and threw him a short pass in the flat. And then there was also an overthrow to rookie Jamari Thrash, a guy who's flashed a bit and could push for that wide receiver 3 role if Deontay Johnson can't stay healthy. And I think that's a big possibility because as he gets older, he just seems like he's not that same receiver anymore, and it makes sense. I mean, nobody is really after their prime is over, and Deontay's kind of looking a bit washed. Flacco wasn't perfect, but the team clearly wants him to get comfortable early. Kenny Pickett followed with the second team. He had a bootleg out to Elijah McDonald, hit David Carter in the flat, then handed one off to Marshall, and he had a solid day, but not eye-popping. He, of course, had the interception that just was not a good look at all because there was no pressure in a training camp setting. Dylan Gabriel came in next with a few clean reps. He hit Florio on a short pass, handed one off to Marshall, and delivered a nice play-action pass that might have been a sack in a real setting, but still, he got the throw off. And he ended the session with a nice completion to tight end Sal Cannella, and there was pressure on the play, probably also could have been a sack, but to his credit, he stood in and delivered the ball on time and in rhythm. One of the best defensive plays came from Grant Delpit. I know I was talking about how Kenny Pickett threw the interception, but it also was a great play by him. Pickett held onto the ball a little too long, and Delpit made him pay. It was a clean read, a good break, and a reminder that this secondary has some serious ball hawks on it. And on the flip side of the field, Shedeur Sanders was taking reps in a separate session and went 4 for 4. Most of them were just short underneath throws, but he kept the ball off the ground and made the right decisions. In those modified 7-on-7s, the defensive line is present but not rushing, so it's more about decision making and rhythm than pocket movement. Still though, Sanders looked comfortable and very decisive. We also got to see a nice rep from Dylan Gabriel during his session. He completed a strike, as I kind of mentioned earlier, to Canella, and he showed some chemistry throughout the day, and while it looked like he might have been sacked on that play if it was live, he got the ball up quickly and accurately, and these reps are more about timing and decision making than they are about mobility or contact balance. So you take the pressure with a grain of salt, but still, when the ball placement is that clean, you take note of it. So overall, there still is a decent quarterback battle brewing. I don't think we're going to find out who the official starting quarterback is, even though we know it's Joe Flacco, until right before the start of the season. And even if nobody wants to call it yet, Kenny Pickett had that pick to Delpit. Shedeur had a clean slate on his reps. Gabriel looked sharp, and Flacco was steady but unspectacular. So I think the rookies won the day, and at this point it seems like the rookies are the best option out there, besides when Flacco kind of starts the season off, just so everyone can get comfortable and kind of learn what life in the NFL is like. Anyways, enough of me rambling about my opinions. The red zone work came next, and this was where we really got a sense of who was operating efficiently. Pickett was with the ones, unfortunately, and he opened up with a short pass to Jerry Jeudy in the flat, and he followed that off by handing the ball off to Pierre Strong, and then he hit Jeudy once again on a short pass. He clearly is trying to feed the ball to his playmakers. And then came the play of the session when defensive tackle Mason Graham, who the Browns of course traded up and gave up that Travis Hunter pick to get, forced a fumble on a Nate Marshall carry. And that's the type of play that gets the coaching staff excited, and he needs to show up. He needs to have a big year even though he is only a rookie. And I know the coaching staff was kind of concerned with his weight because it was fluctuating around. He was like 20 pounds overweight, and then he was perfectly fine, and then he would show up like 3 weeks later and he was overweight again. But I think the athletic training staff has kind of got that under control, and he's going to be a great player. He has so much potential. When he got drafted, Nick Saban called him a menace. He said it was hell to coach against him, so I'm excited to see what he can do opposite of Myles Garrett. And then Pickett followed that play up with an incomplete pass to Cedric Tillman in the end zone after pressure got in his face. Gabriel did take the next set and started out strong. Deontay Johnson dropped a pass in the end zone that should have been a score because he's washed. It was a big missed opportunity, but Gabriel bounced back with a nice play fake and hit Thrash on a crossing route. After that was an overthrow to the safety and Ronnie Bates, and then he had another handoff to Marshall. So it was a mixed bag, but he stayed aggressive and tried to push the ball, and that's something that coaches notice, especially early on, because it's not all about just the execution, it's more about the building blocks for a rookie. Shedeur's red zone work was limited, with him currently being the 4th quarterback on the depth chart. And I also forgot to mention in the intro, I was going to talk about how Andrew Berry kind of spoke about his speeding tickets, something that I think is just stupid and is blown completely out of proportion, but I am going to show that interview as well as what Joe Flacco had to say at the end of this video. But anyways, in terms of what he did today at practice, one play was blown dead by a low snap, and that kind of has been happening. The O-line, the second O-line, or the second unit, has been really struggling, so likely not his fault there. And another was flushed due to an offsides by a defender. And then came a covered sack where nobody was open. He did get a handoff off to Dylan Sampson at the end, but overall it was a quiet stretch for him. But he was 4 for 4 in the one drill, and he showed upside. There weren't really any mental mistakes. He just controlled what he can, and that's really all he's been doing. The breakdowns were mostly situational, a bad snap, a defensive pressure, or nobody winning their route or getting open, and that happens a lot with second team, so you can't knock a guy too hard for that, especially when the processing and poise are consistent. He just looks so good in the pocket. His awareness is crazy. Defensively, the Browns continue to look like a unit that can cause problems if they bounce back. I just talked about Delpit and Graham already, but Myles Garrett looks ready to go as well. He generated pressure on one of Flacco's reps, forcing an overthrow, and you can feel the presence he brings even in a non-contact setting. That's the type of player who raises the floor of an entire defense. And while the quarterback rotation dominated most of the headlines today, as they're going to for the next few months, it's the most intriguing thing in football right now. The running back reps were something worth watching. Pierre Strong seems to be getting the bulk of the work with the ones, especially with Ford sidelined and Judkins, that whole situation going down. He had multiple touches in both team and red zone periods, including a few checkdowns and interior runs. Dylan Sampson is making the most of his opportunities too. He had a big year at Tennessee in 2024, so he's more than capable of being a guy that gets a lot of touches even at the NFL level in year one. And whether it's shadowing Strong or rotating in with the twos, Judkins absolutely absence is notable, but the Browns don't seem too pressed about it. They're giving the young guys a chance to step up, and if nothing else, it's good tape when the pads do come on. There is still a lot to be figured out. The Browns haven't shown their hand with how they plan to split quarterback reps long term, and we haven't seen full contact yet to properly judge the run game, but the foundation is there. Shedeur Sanders is showing flashes of high level poise and accuracy and pocket presence. Gabriel looks like a guy who can hold his own. Pickett still sadly is kind of in the mix, even if the turnovers are frustrating, and Flacco, the veteran, seems to be there to stabilize the room and kind of be a mentor, even though he said he doesn't want to be. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds when the pads finally do come on. Alright, now for Andrew Berry. He did have a press conference where he talked about Shedeur Sanders speeding tickets. I think it's stupid, but he felt that it was enough to actually speak to the media about so let's hear what he had to say, as well as Joe Flacco, about how the practice went today.
Not smart. Just not smart, and it's something that we've addressed with him. You know, he understands the implications. He understands the consequences. And I think the thing is, like, it's not just about yourself, right? It's not just about, you know, having a joyride. It's not just about, you know, driving a car really fast, but it's about the fact that you can endanger other people. It's about the fact that if a deer or someone, you know, cuts out in front of you, like, your reaction time, it's just dangerous. And it's not something that we want our guys to be doing. It's not something that they should be doing. And the number one reason is because we don't want some type of catastrophic accident. Like, right, we saw that, you know, 2 years ago in, what was it, Dallas or Houston with a, you know, with a player. And in that incident, everybody was lucky to walk away. And we don't want that occurring in, you know, with anyone in our league.
Yeah, man, I just think the whole speeding thing is just blown out of proportion. Obviously, it's a bad mistake, and young people shouldn't be doing that. It just leads to tragic situations, and you got to know that there's cops on every Ohio road. It's nuts. But again, he's young, and if any other rookie did this, I don't think it would get these kind of headlines. It's stupid, but it is what it is, and I'm glad that Andrew Berry talked to him, and that's all kind of settled. So now we can just focus on football. But that's really all I have to say for this video. Let me know if you enjoyed this one, and if you did, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe. There's going to be so much content to make over the next few months and so much to talk about with the Browns training camp continuing on. So yeah, man, thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, I will see you all later.